In the spring of 1937, a young man named James Whitmore boarded a ship from Southampton. He was 26, quiet and thoughtful. He loved reading and music. James was going to start a new job in Canada as a piano teacher. He carried one small bag, a book of poetry, and a photo of his mother. She had passed away the year before. The ship was called the Atlantic Star. It was large, white, and strong. As the ship left the harbor, James stood at the railing. He didn't know that this journey would change his life forever. On the second morning, James sat on a bench on the top deck. He was reading when he heard a soft voice beside him.
Nice day for sailing.
The woman said. James looked up. A young woman about his age smiled at him. Her name was Elena Clark. She was traveling to Halifax to visit her brother. She wore a blue hat and carried a notebook. He nodded.
It is,
he said, closing his book. They began to talk, slowly at first, then easily. They spoke about books, music, and family. They discovered they both loved Chopin and rainy days. Each day, they walked the deck together. They watched the waves and listened to the ship's band in the evening. They shared tea in the dining room and laughed at seagulls stealing food. James read her poems. Elena showed him sketches of her travels. One night, as the sun set, they stood near the railing. James said,
"Funny how you can feel so close to someone you've just met."
Elena looked at him, her eyes soft.
Some people arrive at the right moment.
She said. On the sixth night at sea, something felt wrong. The sky, once clear, turned a deep grey. The wind grew louder, like a voice warning them to prepare. That evening, the passengers were asked to stay in their cabins. James sat near the small window, watching waves grow taller. The sea, once gentle, was now wild. The ship began to sway. He clutched the notebook Elena had drawn in earlier that day. Then, just after midnight, it began. A sudden, violent storm hit the ship. Waves crashed against the sides like hammer blows. Wind screamed through the narrow corridors. Rain poured down like sheets of glass. The ship groaned under the pressure. Plates fell, lights flickered, people screamed in the hallways. A loudspeaker crackled.
Attention all passengers. This is the captain speaking. Please remain calm. Put on your life jackets. Follow crew instructions.
Doors slammed, boots thundered on the stairs. Voices shouted above the roar of the wind. James ran to Elena's cabin and banged on the door. She opened it, already wearing her coat.
James,
she cried, grabbing her scarf.
what's happening?
Come with me.
He shouted.
We need to get to the top deck, now.
He took her hand, and they ran through the shaking corridors. Water was rising on the lower levels. The floor was wet. The smell of smoke and salt filled the air. Behind them, someone screamed.
It's flooding. The lower cabins are flooding.
James and Alina climbed the slippery stairs, holding onto the railings. Rain blew in through the open doors. The deck was chaos, people running, shouting, crying. Crew members yelled instructions, guiding passengers to the lifeboats.
Stay close.
James shouted.
Don't let go.
They were both shaking, from cold, from fear, from the unknown. They reached the lifeboats. There were people everywhere, mothers, children, older passengers. The lifeboats were being lowered quickly.
Only one more.
A sailor yelled.
We've got one space left.
James looked at Alina, his heart pounded. He opened his mouth to speak, but she was faster.
Go.
She said, pushing him forward. James stepped back, refusing.
No. Not without you.
The sailor's voice came again, sharp this time.
One space. Now. We're running out of time.
Alina's eyes were full of tears, but her hands were steady. She pulled her notebook from inside her coat, the one filled with her sketches and thoughts, and pressed it into James's hands.
This is everything I've made.
She said softly.
It's not much, but I want you to keep it.
James stared at her, shaking his head.
Eleanor, please. We'll find another boat.
There is no time.
She whispered. She stepped forward and kissed his cheek, just once, and then gently pushed him toward the sailor. James tried to hold on to her hand, but she let go. He was lifted into the lifeboat. His heart was breaking. Rain poured down around them. The boat began to lower. He looked up. She was still standing there. Her blue scarf blew wildly in the wind. She gave him one last smile, a sad, quiet smile, and touched the brim of her hat. The lifeboat dropped into the water. The last thing James saw was her face through the rain. And then she was gone. By morning, everything had changed. The sea was flat and still, like glass. The wind was gone, the sky was pale. James sat in the lifeboat, wrapped in a wet coat, his hands shaking. He didn't speak, no one did. He held Alina's notebook close to his chest, like it was made of gold. The ship was gone, so was she. Later, when he reached land, he opened the notebook. The first page carried her writing.
For James. If you are reading this, then I made a choice. You helped me believe in beauty again. That is enough. Keep sailing.